Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Village of Bellows Falls Trustees meeting.
There's a limited time period where you can do it.
Right, so once we do it, we're in, we don't,
Once we're in, we're at least a party that's within that current settlement. And then again, they modify these things all the time. So
Right.
they add it.
yeah,
You know, as you've seen with our opioid settlement now, we have 5 different streams of money coming from 5 different settlements. So this could go that same route. You might end up with multiple litigations and multiple sorts of.
It's just really a really good insurance policy is the way I look at it.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's something to protect ourselves.
That's correct.
At least give us an option if we do have a problem in the future.
So motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we have we'll have Scott register
We'll
for,
register us online and at least put us into the queue for that potential down the road if we need it.
and we'll move to item 3 on the agenda, updated ARPA projects.
So a couple things since we last got together, we did talk about, we did sort of winnow our list down to about 6 priority projects. I did hand out some information tonight that I just, again, wanted to go through. It's very preliminary. The first thing is the housing redevelopment ARPA funding proposal. So this is part of an ongoing discussion and we've had multiple presentations by Ridwig. We've talked about some strategies to try to do some infill development within the village and some ways that they think they can turn some of our underutilized properties in town into places where people could then provide tax base and also revitalize some of the neighborhoods where some of these properties are somewhat derelict. So with that in mind, Gary has just put together a very sort of brief outline as to how we could potentially fund some of that redevelopment within the village and help us move forward potentially with some specific locations. And again, we haven't proposed any, and we're certainly going to have another presentation for Woodbury at your September 26th meeting. So they'll be jumping into this in more detail. But I just wanted to sort of prepare the board as to how this potentially could work in some sort of an arrangement as we go forward and identify how you might want to potentially put some funds aside to also then be seed money for some of these that also might come through this process, which we're still defining as we go forward.
so they're gonna go over this and,
We'll have a much more detailed presentation at the 26th, but I didn't want the board to hear it for the first time there.
yeah,
Wanted to make sure that we were on the same sort of wavelength as to how this could potentially work. And if there were questions or concerns, we could try to at least get some information back for you. And again, these commitments we talk about with the proposed use of ARPA at this point are just that. They're just proposals, so that the idea that we would fund it with $150,000 is just a number. It doesn't necessarily mean a commitment at this point in time. The board certainly keeps all that authority that they can decide how they want to move forward, if they want to move forward after we see this most recent, the next round of presentations. But since we do have $880,000 and the 2024 sort of time clock is ticking, I at least wanted to get some of these down in the front of the board so they can sort of hash through some of this and get into some more of the detail if there's a question or concern, and make sure that we don't get to the end of our funding source time period and then we haven't spent our money. So I think that's really the goal here.
Just to manage expectations for September, I think the September presentation, is on sidewalks. And then in October, Vermont Housing and Community Development is coming.
There's a separate meeting in October, like 18th. I think.
Yeah, they're coming to
Right.
town because Bellows Falls Rockingham was selected as one of 5 communities in the state for infill development study.
Right.
So they're gonna walk through and then they'll come back with a result of their study. So I think it's probably after that that things would be, those could dovetail. But I think it's September on the sidewalks.
I haven't gotten a full copy yet of what they were gonna put out there. But I wanted to just get this in front of the board just so that they have a sense of what we're talking about.
Right.
And it's, like I said, it's very loose, it's not in great detail. And the funding amounts are, again, just recommendations.
I think, one of the concerns with that is, if we did put aside some funds, it's the management of it. I think having an organization like this that we could rely on to
Right.
do something with it, is, to me, would be very important part of putting money aside.
And I think in order to get our funds used before the expiration, I think the idea of the monies that we would put together would be very direct in terms of, so it has to be cleanup done on a particular, parcel, or if to tear down buildings, basically making sites shovel ready so that if we wanted to do a development agreement or a partnership agreement or some other type of agreement to develop housing, that work would already be done. That cost would be, not necessarily would help, I think, the affordability, but it would not necessarily be affordable, not like we did at the PF Garage, for example. But it would make it more affordable for folks that maybe couldn't invest in a property like that, would have an opportunity maybe to do that.
Yeah, remove some barriers.
Exactly.
The renovating 44 steps for connectivity, that's
Something we're gonna continue to pursue, so.
Yeah, what is
is
that?
that the stair side over here?
Correct.
Stair side.
Oh, the stairs.
Right.
Yeah.
Those, if you go to the top of the stairs, you'll start to see that they need to be completely rebuilt. The bottom portion of the stairs is really just some finishing and some resurfacing. But if you go to the upper portion of the stairs, they're in tough shape. And they really have to be, in order to be long-term, in order to be in good shape, they really need to be rebuilt. $100,000 that we're trying to put through the town to do a 5-year, $100,000 improvement for all sidewalks is really geared more towards specific neighborhoods and trying to really sort of give people an opportunity to see things directly in their neighborhoods. And speaking of sidewalks, the other thing I just wanted to bring the board's attention, we do have the meeting on next Monday night, which is the first public hearing to talk about the School Street and Atkinson Street. It's the grant that we received for transportation alternatives, so we're going to have the consultants there to do the first public meeting. We're going to start to gather some data, look at alternatives. That intersection is important for a lot of reasons, certainly because we have Central Elementary School and the middle school both within that vicinity. So we're going to look at all those connections, see what might make some sense, improvements that might be necessary. If you look at the sidewalks along the playgrounds at Central Elementary School, those sidewalks are in tough shape. They all really need to be redone. As well as if you look at the intersections there where the kids cross over to get to the front of the school, we haven't completed any of those as ADA compliant. So none of those have the proper ramps. They don't have the proper truncated domes. So there's a lot of work that could be done to make all of that access better. And certainly that's something that we want. Once we get through this process, the next phase of that process is to then apply for transportation alternative grants for implementation. And so I think we'd be in pretty good shape to do that. And that would be then a significant amount of sidewalk work that would be outside that additional sidewalk work that we're asking the town to entertain. So I think we could see some significant progress relatively quickly. We could pull all these things together.
Anything else on this?
Who is our representative on that? The trustees have a
We
representative.
did it.
Is it Deb?
Was down.
It was that.
I think it still is.
I think still is. I think we left her there because she was still on the planning commission. I think everybody felt she could be, a liaison for that.
Yeah.
So.
Is she aware of the meeting?
She's aware, but I will definitely reinforce it with her.
Yeah.
The only other thing with ARPA-related discussions, we're working with Ross to finalize their most recent application for CDBG funding. So Gary and I submitted that today, working with Marty. It doesn't fill all of the gaps that she has in her proposal, but it fills some. I had just put in a sort of placeholder number that she needed some additional funds for some of the design work. We've already approved $15,000 for engineering. So the $25,000 I put in there as a placeholder is that she has to go and do additional design or engineering work. And prior to receiving sort of the next round of the funding stack. So that's what that's in there for. Again, it's not necessarily a direct obligation. The only thing we've really agreed to do so far is the $100,000 initial grant and the $15,000, which she's using for her NEPA process. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention as well. And we'll keep you informed as things go along with the CDBG process and then where she stands ultimately.
Any other questions?
Yep. What about the, Lula left?
So we've been working with the state on getting the waiver for the current lift, and they still have not given us clear indication as to if they're going to do it or not. So Sean's going to the meeting next week, where he's hoping to get a hold of the person that originally was the one that was going to make that call directly and say, where do we stand? Because that's one of our priorities to get that work done. So we should have something more hopefully by the end of next week.
Anything else? We'll move on to item 4. We have sewer, Canal Street.
So this is one of those good news, bad news situation, depending upon how you feel about the construction of the Depot Bridge. So the state informed us in a recent call that due to flooding, which I think you're going to hear over and over and over again in state projects, they have to delay this particular project. And now the construction timeline has been moved out to where we won't see any actual work within Canal Street for the state work until April of 2026. So while that's somewhat of a disappointment, just because I think this project is important, we want to get it underway, it does give us an opportunity to go behind this and give us more time to do updates on our utilities within that area and the right of way. Some of the, just in talking to Rob, he said some of the original sewer work in there is clay tile. We have stormwater utilities that were built there. They were just built out of stone. They're stacked stones. They're not even real catch basins or any kind of structures. They're just stone stacks. So some of the infrastructure in that area of the village is 100+ years old. Same with some of our water connections. We also have some buildings that still have combined storm leaders, storm drains, as well as sanitary. So we'd be able to do some separation on that and hopefully see a reduction in the storm flows for I&I. As we had talked about, some of the storm flows that come from Walpole also come from our downtown. We still have some of these old combined facilities, which during storm events, you're basically treating rainwater is what you're doing at the sewage plant, which is not a wonderful thing to do. So I hope to take some additional monies from the fund balance in our water funds, since we have a tremendous amount of water. And the engineers have already done most of the current utility layout and design, so we can work around what's already proposed and be able to basically get all of our utilities approved for updates. And then we have two options. We can either do the work ourselves, or we can actually add it to the contract as non-state work, but then the contractor will just bid that as a separate price, and it will be done as part of the contract work as they can up the street. But at least it gives you the option to take a look at that. My preference is we don't want to tear up Canal Street after we do this project. I think it's going to be disruptive enough. So if we can get in there and make a clean sweep and improve all that, get rid of the combined overflows on the sewage, update the sewage. Rob's talked about potentially moving our force main up to connect to the square so that it would give us more capacity in terms of the pump station at Canal Street now. We'd be able to take more capacity at that location and then improve all the other things that are antiquated and out of date within that stretch, since that whole road's gonna be torn up. It'll save us a lot of money, because we won't have to pay a contractor all the mobilization, demobilization, and all the other aspects that'll be in the state project. Will just be part of that specification as the work goes forward. So it's a long-winded explanation to say that I think if we take that $30,000, we can take their existing drawings, get some updates on what potentially needs to be replaced and some cost estimates, with plenty of time to bring it back to this board as we go through our budget discussions later on in, early 2024, make decisions and still have enough time then to make approvals if that's the work we want to do, and then get it into the state, get it into the state bid as they go forward for 2026.
Any ballpark estimate of what kind of money we're talking about?
I don't know yet, Jakes, because the one thing I don't have yet is they've done borings further up the street, and I need to see where there might be contamination, because if there's soil issues, that could add to the cost. So I don't really want to speculate. They've done all the borings, which is tremendous, because that saved us a lot of overhead just by that work already being done. So I won't get a sense of that until we get a better sense of what's actually needed to, where we have to dig. And then is there going to be any potential contamination in some of those locations?
And would this involve the entire Canal Street?
You would basically take Canal Street roughly from the manhole, which is slightly, you can see where the manhole is out, sort of in the middle of the square, all the way down Canal Street to the pump station.
To the pump station,
Yes,
which is on this side of the bridge.
correct. That, basically.
So extra block, yeah.
Yeah, the backside of Coffee Place and
Right.
the whole extra block.
Is it $30 or 30,000?
Should be
30,000.
a K in there, but for $30, I'll do it with a pencil.
You gotta agree with the numbers we're
For
talking.
30,000, I gotta get an engineer who's actually gonna do it with CAD drawings and do it.
Well, I'll approve 30.
Yeah.
Motion.
Yeah.
So I guess I'd entertain a motion to appropriate $30,000 from the existing utility fund balance in the water fund.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I do have, so just because I'm curious.
Yeah,
So you're saying to piggyback it with the project when it all starts in 2026?
right. What the state calls it is non-participating, so they'll put it into their bid specification. It's awarded to the same contractor who's doing all their work during our air utilities. But the beauty of it is then we don't have to then go out and pay a separate contractor and all the other.
So it's all done in one sweep.
We also don't have to pay to restore the street. We basically pay for all of that.
That's correct.
So it's about as cheap as we're gonna ever get it done.
And
we're
I
gonna
think
have the
there's
street-
electrical or, telephone cables and all that stuff that.
Oh, there's fiber lines, there's
There's a whole
telephone.
bunch of different stuff
It's a
down.
complicated right of way through there, so it really needs some real design, and then come back and talk about it so that the board's comfortable with what we're trying to do.
So a motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we will be spending $30,000 out of the water fund for design on Canal Street. At this point, we'll move on to item 5, financials.
So Alyssa put together just a quick update. She's been working on a couple of issues, very specifically, some stuff that the board had requested and some stuff that she was just working on as part of her normal course of being the finance director. That being said, I'll go through a couple things just so that you're aware. The audit thing is important just from the standpoint of we want to get the town and the village audits done more timely this year. So we engaged them earlier and they had started earlier, so we're hopeful that they'll stay on schedule and that we'll be able to get our town audit done as well as our village audit done with enough leeway so that we don't have to then struggle to get it into the village report, the town report, and go through that whole fiasco of trying to get it before town and village meetings. So I appreciate her staying on the auditors and getting that stuff started in a much more timely manner. The septic balance for best septic, I wanted to just give some detail to the board that had come up in previous conversations. So we've been in touch with them about catching up not only to their monthly utilization, but also then catching up to their past due. So basically what we've done is said, you know, they've consistently been behind in payments, sometimes 2 months worth, sometimes 3 months worth, but they've never been 100% or at least within 30 days of billing. So basically the proposal is you got to pay me whatever your monthly septage is per month, as well as a $6,000 catch up so that we can catch up to all of your past due billing and make sure that we're in good stead going forward when we start programming our budget for next year. So I'll keep you up to date as they're keeping on that schedule. And if not, we'll have to discuss about what we're going to do at that point. But I just want to bring that to the board's attention since you had brought it up previously.
Go ahead, Chief. What?
Yeah.
So we'll do best septic first and then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have the current balance sheet for the sewer fund, but as I recall, the year-end balance sheet, the audited balance sheet, it had a receivable of like $175,000. It was a lot of money. I'm assuming that both Best and the Northwest Minister were part of that receivable.
I believe so. I got Alyssa on. Hang on a second. She's going to unmute herself. And
Because one of the things that I'd like to see an aging of the receivable.
sure,
This is probably the two biggest.
I think by far, yes, they are.
The when we're looking at here today on Best, it shows a payment of $14,000 was made a couple of days ago.
Right.
Okay, and our current balance is like 70. After that payment is $76,000. So they were up to $9,000.
No, I don't believe so, Jakes. I think Best is up here. So they right now owes 14,896. I think the 75, 81, 83, 815, I think that's all.
I think
Best septic, 76,294.71.
But I mean, Alyssa, that reflects a payment just a couple of days ago.
Right, they were the 76,000 plus the 14. Yes.
Yeah, so in other words, all through the summer, they've been running up, $18,000 to $20,000, and we're not collecting a penny from them. I think the program that you're talking about needs to be more aggressive. This looks to me like a company that's in trouble. I think that they have to, my opinion, if they're going to keep dumping at our plant, they're going to have to come up with substantially more money than this. Clearly, we can't let people do this and run a business. I mean, it's like we record these revenues, but if we don't collect them, they're not revenues. And so when we look at our surplus or our fund balances, we're assuming this is good money. And I would say with this record, the fact that we let them get up to 90,000 and only get a payment just 2 days ago. Fortunately, we've got a meeting tonight. Otherwise, we might not have got that payment. I hope it's cleared the bank.
They were making monthly payments, but the problem is their monthly payments were never the amount of their bill. So this payment that they just made was half of the May bill.
They were so far
So
behind, they were.
yeah, so they got half of May to pay. They have June, July, and we just billed them August. So they're 3.5 months behind.
Yeah, for sure. But like I say, your payment plan, to me is not aggressive enough.
Right, so they would owe us
Yeah, I-
23,979.47, which would pay for what we just billed for August plus the 6,000 past due.
They
That would
pay
be-
half of May in September.
Right, that would get them down to 50, and then again, once we bill September, that would get them down to 44, so we would cut into that balance.
So Jigs, the way that we figured it was if we could get them, starting with this one we just billed, to pay their entire bill every month, starting now, they would have their entire balance paid off with that extra 6,000 before June. So before the end of the fiscal year, if they did what we're asking, they would be caught up in June.
Well, what if they don't do, so in other words, when would the next, on your theory here, when would their next payment be due?
Well, seeing as we just sent them that letter last week, we're expecting that they're going to make this $18,000 August bill payment plus a 6,000. We haven't heard from them yet, so we're waiting to see what their response is.
And I think to Jiggs's question, what happens the day after that bill is due and it's not paid and they show up with a full truck at the sewage
Right.
plant?
Well, I think that's what we have to discuss. If they don't like, what we proposed, are we just going to shut them down? Or are we going to make them pay every time they dump? There's different options. They could, if you want to dump, you're going to have to bring a check for, $5,000 every time you dump, right? Because then that would help them get caught up. Plus make a monthly payment, So I don't know. There's options, but we have to discuss what they can do.
I would say that I would want to talk to their bank or their principal, certainly, right off. I'm glad you sent them a letter, but I wouldn't let them dump another anything, not one single thing, until they come in with that this current month bill plus the $6,000 and give you assurances that they've got the funds to do this. Because I think as I say, this is a company that's been knowingly not meeting their obligations, and we've allowed them to do it. And so no, I wouldn't let them dump tomorrow. If they're not ready with the payment. This is very serious because, like I said, we either have a bad debt of $76,000, or we've got a company that just for whatever reason has been lax in their payments. But no, I think you've let this go. I don't mean you, but I mean this has been let go to the point where we've got a crisis here, as far as I'm concerned.
Wait, I actually agree with James, and in my opinion, they should be stopped immediately until this is all resolved, and then once that's done, then they can start dumping again.
Yeah.
It's not like, and I appreciate the fact that you folks have been, certainly have a record of working with them, that you've been given ample time. Yeah, that's, if you look at it the way you're saying, it was actually started out at 90 grand,
Yeah.
plus or minus a couple dollars.
And they, 2 days ago, they paid that payment, like I said, hopefully the check is cleared. No, this is too far gone.
I mean, if we had somebody that owed back property taxes of 90 grand, that won't happen.
And like, and the other thing is, we don't know what the situation is with other septic companies. I'd like to see the aging of the other accounts. To make sure that they are paying on the 30-day. If we're giving them 30 days to pay, that they're paying on the 30 days.
Yeah, I have to do some research. I don't know who else.
We have 3 accounts that are, into the 60, 90, 120 day aging, and it's Best Septic, it's Westminster District 5 for the sewer, and it is Saxons River Village. I believe Saxons River Village had just turned 60. I asked Pam if they have a record of not paying, and she said no, they pay. So I'm assuming that bill is going to get paid this, soon, and then it would just leave District 5 and Best Septic as the only ones that are in the past due column.
That's good. That's good to hear.
So maybe what needs to happen, Scott, is we need to have a phone conversation
Sure.
with these guys tomorrow to find out where they are
Right.
financially, and what's going on as far as payment coming to us. And if we need to set up, a written agreement, payment plan type thing, and then as soon as they miss, you shut them off, is what I'm at least hearing from a couple of the board
Right.
members.
I wouldn't let them dump another truck without.
But it sounds to me that we really need to have a phone conversation.
Sure, we can do that tomorrow for sure.
Well, they really need to have a phone card.
I understand that, but but if we wait for that,
Right.
that might be 14 days from now, so.
Maybe.
So I think that you and
Yep.
I would like to have something set up where anybody who comes in and wants to dump, they have to fill out an application to charge. Otherwise, they need to bring their checkbook and pay us when they dump. Because there is one on there, it's $1,900, and I don't know how many dumps that was. I don't know how that works out. He's no longer in business, so. Was that one dump and it was the last dump and he just never paid? Or was that, 4 or 5 dumps and he never paid? So I think to protect us in the future, there should be some sort of a credit check, and some sort of an agreement that's signed. And if they can't do that or unwilling to do that or whatever, then it should be a pay as you dump.
Yeah, we've never had a septage policy. It's always been kind of loose. So it might be time where we have to tighten this up.
right.
Yeah, Northwest Minister's another issue.
Well, we're gonna get into that as well.
That's-
Since we're in the world of finance. So I guess, are we done with Best? At least we have a sense of I have a sense of what the board wants. Anything else on Best? I don't want anybody
No, it
else.
sounds like they're the only ones.
Okay.
that, I'm not worried about Saxon River. But we should, part of the family, we should say, hey, pay your bill.
If they want to come to the 5-year meeting.
Yeah. Bring a check.
I'll talk to Amy before that. So on the Westminster Fire District, we've done a little bit of field work. Rob's now out. He's gonna be out on medical for a while, but we were able to get some information, working with finance as well. So we got all of our information back to Ally at Westminster. So she's doing some follow-up in their land records to see if we have some either accounts that have been changed or modified or issues. And she has promised to have that back to us this week. After that, then we will have a follow-up meeting, probably out in Westminster with the district, because by then I'll have determined proper ownership of the current accounts, the proper past due balances of the current accounts, and I'm gonna have Kathy Blake come to a meeting. And basically, at that point, there's gonna be, she's gonna have to explain to the rest of the members of her district why they're 2 payments past due. I'm not sure how she's gonna do it. I have no confidence in the records that have been provided to us that they have any, I don't have any confidence in the records, but that's all we have. So, and then after that, we're planning on working with the attorney, either with our attorney or with theirs, to file liens. So that is to be determined. But at this point, they're consistently 2 payments behind on billing. And the accounts that we went through were not in great shape in terms of the detail and how they were being tracked in terms of the payments that were received through the district, which again, we don't handle their money. So I anticipate that meeting will be incredibly unpleasant, but it's necessary. So
And 2 payments behind equates to basically 12 months.
it's about $46,000 roughly,
But time frame is about a year.
and it's almost a year.
And the next bill is going out.
And we're going out
Yeah.
soon. Right. So,
Yeah, the end of September, there's gonna be the next billing, so it'll be a year and a half. And she hasn't made a payment to us since January, so.
well, that one's a little more concerning to me in terms of what other problems there might be. So,
Well, in some respects, the big fear in that one, as far as I'm concerned, is that people have paid their bill and the money's not in some account. Okay, that to me is the biggest thing. We had talked several months ago before you guys came on the board. And one of the things that I think the board agreed with Scott was that let's take Northwestminster Fire District out of the picture and bill these people like they're regular customers,
right.
like you and me, okay? And that way, if they don't pay the bill, they get shut off and this and that. So I think that probably still is the best way to go here. But we've got to get there. We've got to get an agreement that makes them customers as opposed to our customer being the Westminster Fire District or whatever. So,
Right.
So that to me is the big concern. People have paid their bill and the money's gone. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know whether you get have the accountants do a audit.
Well, you could always do a forensic audit, but they're not, again, they're only gonna be as reliable as the data. And they've been doing the billing themselves for 30+ years. And the billing detail that they provided to us was not great.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of faith in the numbers. And I'm sure the people in the district, when they sit down and they see some of these large balances, are not gonna be happy. And again, it's one of those things, you're just gonna have to be the bearer of bad news and say, sorry, folks, but, this is where we are. It's not an obligation of the taxpayers of the village of Bellows Falls. So you're gonna have to figure out how to make this work. So
You'll keep us informed on that.
we'll keep you informed as that moves along.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Anything else? finances, anything?
The last thing on, at least on the list is letter before we get into the actual finances or the financials was, just as you can see, our current past due delinquencies. We have already sent out, based on our new policy, a letter to all the folks that are within the delinquency amounts. And we'll see where we stand before we send out our next letter, which is usually our attorney letter. And then after that, we'll have to go and do a tax sale, but we'll let you know as we progress. But at least you can see where we are currently. So with all that being said, now I guess we can turn our attention to our traditional budget status reports.
Well, the financials, it's pretty preliminary.
Right.
A lot of the accounts haven't been filled in.
It's a little early in
Yeah.
the year to get any real
Second,
any sense of where we are.
It looks like we paid $9,400 to the auditor on our $5,000 budget, which could be that we just haven't allocated the water and sewer portion to them. But it's unusual to prepay your audit fees.
Alyssa, do you remember why there was was that also because of the single audit as well, or there was a reason why on the audit, on the general fund?
Why we've paid some, you mean?
You look at, right, I guess it's page 3 on the general fund. Looking
Yeah.
at the audit.
Yeah, I'll look at that, but they bill us as we go along. It's not like they haven't done anything. They have like, I said that we were working on town first and then village, but a lot of these things run together because they are together. And I've already completed the assets with them. So there was stuff for them to bill. The question of why this is $9,400, I'll have to look at that.
anything else, any other questions on financials? If not, then I'll move on to item 6, which was added, which is the BFDDA, $25,000 grant from the state.
So this was a new allocation from the state of Vermont to designated downtowns, which is the good news. And so that's money that can be spent in a variety of ways. I think what they're asking the board to do is to simply say through this appendix attachment that our level of funding would not change based upon this additional funding through the state. That they want to make sure that, that local governments that are supporting their downtown development and alliance organizations then don't say, oh, good, well, now I got $25,000 I can spend somewhere else. So that's really what they're asking us to basically acknowledge.
I don't think we have to. We've got a budget for $10,000, and whenever our financial manager pays out those funds is fine. Why would we, unless there was something about from the state grant that said that the town or village shouldn't support the downtown business, there's no reason to do that. Why? So it's in our budget.
I think the state's fear, and most of the time when the state deals with local jurisdictions, they're always concerned that the local jurisdiction will then pull back their funding, since it will be in the locals' mind replaced by state funding.
And we have no intention of doing that.
I know that.
But they want,
But I
they
think
want
we
us
have to sign off and say,
They just
we
want-
will not do that.
They just
Yes.
want
That's
us
what we're
to say,
saying in this paper.
For this is more for the state.
This is
Yeah.
more for the
100%
state. Yes,
for the
yes,
state.
yes. This is going back to the state.
Okay.
and I agree with you, Jakes, we wouldn't do that anyway, but this is what the state has asked us to do, so I wanted to bring it to the board as a formal
So
action.
it looks like this is just a one-time, at least for the current budget year. this is what that's for.
You don't know how many of these will be recurring. It appears that this is a one-shot deal, but we'll see. Yeah.
I would entertain a motion that we would sign appendix 2 of the BFDDA 25,000 grant from the state.
So moved.
Second, motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And motion carries. So now we'll move on to review agenda items for our next meeting, which will be October
Yeah.
17th, 2023.
Don't have anything at the moment.
17, 23.
Yeah.
Anything from anybody? I think maybe if we have an update on both best septic and
Sure.
the Gageville, where
Yes.
that all stands.
For sure, we'll have that.
We'll probably have financials.
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, if you have anything, either give Scott a call or give me a call and we'll make sure we get it added. Okay? So review the agenda items for the joint board meeting of September 26, 2023.
So we will have a really big presentation, as Jeff had mentioned. We're gonna talk a little bit about the fire feasibility study and where we stand with that. There was, I believe, an item on there for, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the tax sale, just as where we stand with that. Off the top of my head, those are the primary things that I remember being on there.
Anything else anybody wants added?
I don't know, maybe this is just something for the select board meeting, but I was up at the Oak Hill Cemetery over the weekend collecting pots at the end of the season. And there's a number of dead trees and dead shrubs up there. It would seem as though there needs to be some tree work done at the Oak Hill Cemetery.
Yeah, we have a proposal to do some trees, about $5,000 worth of tree work in there that we're probably gonna finalize here soon.
Okay, because that would be a good deal if you can get
Right,
the dead stuff for 5,000.
yeah.
It also seems like there's more headstones that are down and they're usually on they're not like in the middle, they're sort of where mowers would hit down
Okay, that I don't recall, but I'll take another ride through.
in both cemeteries, the one down on the
The lower as well as the upper.
lower terrace, yeah.
Okay,
I'll just add on to that, and you mentioned cemeteries, or maybe you probably, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a pretty good sized tree that earlier in the summer was down out Cambridgeport Cemetery.
yeah, there's one in Saxon's River too, I believe as well, yeah.
Anything else for the joint board meeting? Well, I'll entertain a motion to approve orders, bills, and warrants.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made, seconded, that we would approve orders, bills, and warrants. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And we will sign off on orders, bills, and warrants. Then we'll move on to other business. Jeff, anything?
I'm all set.
Jigs?
All set.
Connor? All set. Wade?
I just was gonna mention that I haven't seen any movement on the cell tower yet.
No, not yet, I'm surprised, yeah,
You said maybe this month.
I thought he'd be out there. He had originally said early in September, so nothing yet. He'll call me before he comes out, so I'll let you know if he's out on site.
Date of the fireman's parade?
It was the 15th of October.
Okay.
Should double check that. I don't know.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that does, because I think our
It's a
next
Sunday.
meeting is the 17th, okay.
Yes, it is,
Yeah.
it's the fifteenth,
So that,
yes.
yeah, just because I know we won't be meeting before that, so just so that, to kind of give the public a heads up a little bit.
Yeah.
Scott, you have any other business?
No, that was it.
Anything else? And no call for an executive session, I take it? Okay, and so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to be adjourned.
I'll sign that.
Motion been made, seconded, that we adjourn. All in favor would say aye. Aye. We are now adjourned.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.